Chapter 13, they're back at the theater, which is a reminder of the performativity going on here, coming so soon after the big scene in Chapter 12 between Olenska and Archer, and the beginning of that chapter, or the beginning where we're seeing the shifting modes of interior thoughts versus exterior actions and behavior, the melodrama on the stage. Further objectifies and makes strange the melodrama of Wharton's plot. We're not sure exactly how to take this. The great scene between them and the chaste kiss that they have on the hands. The text itself points out this connection just a page or two later. When the wooer turned to her, she rested her arms against the mantel shelf and bowed her face in her hands. On the threshold, he paused to look at her. Then he stole back, lifted one of the ends of the velvet ribbon, kissed it, and left the room without her hearing him or changing her attitude. And on this silent parting, the curtain fell. It's the stage drama that they're seeing. The very next line, really. On the evening in question, the little scene acquired an added poignancy by reminding him, Archer, he could not have said why, of his leave-taking from Madame Olenska after their confidential talk a week or 10 days earlier. This is not made explicit, this connection in the text, but coming just a few minutes after or a few pages after that kiss and the gesture, it sort of draws the reader into this sense of complicity. Like we are seeing this building passion. We're kind of on the inside. Again, the noses pressed against the glass phenomenon. But it's also pointing out that this is all kind of a performance. This is all fake. And we are made constantly conscious of this through all of these little perspective shifts that we're going through. And Wharton is forcing us to look at this from a number of different points of view. The ellipsis of this that we see, he could not have said why. He is not necessarily connecting the dots here. We are invited to fill in some of the blanks here. This is also kind of important. It does conscript the reader into joining in on the illicit nature of this this building drama, but it also recalls that the sense that you are not necessarily dealing with something that is expressible. You are not necessarily dealing with something that is objectively verifiable. You are dealing in a hidden realm of human psychology that doesn't necessarily have concrete answers, that doesn't necessarily conform to the aesthetic framework of realism. And this is maintained throughout this little episode. We learn that May is out of town. She has decamped to Florida with her parents for basically the entire winter. And it is dwelled upon at some length that this is somewhat self-indulgent on the parents' part, particularly the father, who just assumes that, well, May is my daughter and she will come along with me, and she does so dutifully. This is what has always happened, and she, of course, fulfills that role, plays that role. Even though Archer feels perhaps a little neglected now. He is alone for months at a stretch. And this is uncomfortable for him. And it is also significantly in the way that the father is just kind of obliviously self-involved, and the way that the mother is always sort of doting on him and treating him like a child, quite frankly. It's another negative portrait of marriage, one for Archer to be a little bit concerned about. Is that, again, what am I getting myself into, if that's what marriage is really all about? And this is a long-standing and presumably successful marriage, but what's so great about those two? It is also coming from, of course, Wharton, and Wharton's character in this is unavoidable. She did not have a particularly successful married life either. Again, authors, you can't read into these things, but it is kind of there. The plot point, however, of Archer feeling powerless to stop May, I think, is significant, and becomes more so again throughout this episode. It is counterpointed with Olenska crediting him, or at least referencing how Archer's advice about the divorce has been entirely because she is listening to him. Archer sees Olenska in the theater, and he goes over to visit her in her box, the family box, where she is surrounded by many of his friends or rivals, let's say, in some of the other gentlemen of society. You have Beaufort, you have Sillerton Jackson, you have what's his name, Lawrence Lefferts. All of these arbiters of society are now clustered around her, and he feels a little jealous. So he goes over, and they have this very surprisingly intimate talk while the play is going on, presumably. She mentions the yellow roses that he has been sending her anonymously, and it's a little unclear as to whether she is admitting that she knows he has sent them. It's a little uncertain, and there, I think, is significant. You get another blank, another element of the unspoken, and he is drawing an interpretation from that, and she is going along with her interpretation of that, and it just seems to be something that they something oblique that they share. It's a secret, and who doesn't love a good secret to share? It's something that they have a bond, almost an intimacy of that. It is a sign of something unspoken being all the more powerful because it is unspoken. Another element of the inarticulateness that we see so often here. But you get this little moment where Archer, who has been credited, and he's being lauded by May's family for having dissolved the whole divorce question and, put some cold water on Olenska's plans for that. There is this unspoken thing, again, between them that she sort of broaches. He was conscious that Madame Olenska was looking at him under lowered lips. "I have done what you wished, what you advised," she said abruptly. The timing itself is made conspicuous in the next line. "Ah, I'm glad," he returned, embarrassed by her broaching the subject at such a moment. Now, this is coming just right after he had been reflecting about, or revealing, the text had been revealing the bit with May. With May, he was completely ineffectual. He didn't matter at all. He could not interrupt her expected her performance of her expected role with her parents. And now Olenska is crediting him with affecting her behavior. which is empowering, which is perhaps flattering to his vanity. And so that contrast is right there. Olenska is more submissive to him. I think that's significant. She responds with yet another declaration of submission. I understand that you were right, she went on a little breathlessly, but sometimes life is difficult, perplexing. He says, I know. Now, look at that little passage there and see, like, you know, the halting nature of it. The haltingness, if that's a word, suggests that this is all coming out just, you know, a bit of in a rush. We're told breathlessly. But it's coming out half formed. These are presumably not particularly well worked over sentences. They're not even sentences sometimes. They are just utterances that are dropping the pretense of being written. They are trying to represent unformed, unpolished thought, psychology coming in. Yeah, it's all the rage. And you get those the dash, the ellipses, the sense that there is something to fill in there. There is something, some polished connecting thoughts in there that perhaps are being left blank for the reader to supply, for Archer to supply and try and read into it. And then that little I know at the end, he is filling in, saying that, okay, yeah, I know what you're saying. He doesn't necessarily know what she's saying. He is filling in what he thinks she is saying. But you have to admire the concision of this little exchange, the failure of language to capture what is being felt, but the power that it communicates within that failure. Archer understands without language. Which is a sign of sympathy and perhaps intimacy. It is also a validation of a kind of immaterial essence, the something unseen, of a swelling reality, that something hidden within a social structure like language or society itself. Something within that is more powerful, more significant than what conventional thinking has led them to believe, or at least what has led Archer to believe. It's a sign of something inchoate, something subconscious bursting to come out, but it can't come out in a way that is socially communicable, socially acceptable. And so it's just there, butting against the limitations of the social constraints of social expectations in general, and language as a social construct itself. Significantly also, I think it's important that in terms of character and plot development, in terms of the melodrama of it, this scene is showing Archer leaning in just a little bit more. This conversation was much less fraught than their last one over the divorce, much less contentious. They seem to be really quite intimate at this moment. His interest in her seems to be evolving. It started out as a kind of curiosity and even a little, like, you know, perhaps a little sexual excitement, but always tinged with a little condescension. And perhaps the condescension really kicked in most prominently when he saw this letter in her in her personal papers, where supposedly it referenced what he assumed was a scandal, or perhaps a sexual impropriety on her part. And he was, of course, very fussily, disgusted by that. And so he took a very condescending tone. And there, you can look at that scene and invoke the word mansplaining a little bit, where he is trying to help explain to the little lady what she really wants. But I think in this scene you can see something a little bit more, a little bit softer. There's, instead of condescension, there's pity. It's somewhat heartbreaking. He sees her as really quite damaged. Ellen Olenska was lonely and she was unhappy, is the final line of that chapter. And there is something to that. He is trying to be her protector. He's trying to be her champion. He is trying to be her hero in a way that his society does not want him to be. It's a very old-fashioned notion that he still yearns to fulfill this role of the hero. And you can see this intention with, well, no, he has to conform, and to conform to society is to release any heroic ambitions. You cannot be the hero. You must be the bland, lifeless, dull member of society that we all expect you to be. But now he's seeing the possibilities for that, and even a need for that in Olenska. And the pity itself is giving way to a kind of passionate and, in many ways, sincere love.